Me 30. Professional intimacy coordinator and consent educator. Work with theater productions and film sets. Teaching proper consent protocols. Also run workshops on consent and relationships. Build career around enthusiastic consent culture. Every touch requires explicit permission. Consent must be verbal and specific. Assumed consent is assault. Strong believer in these principles. Applied them rigorously in my work. Save people from uncomfortable situations. Created safer spaces for performers. This was important. Necessary work. Started dating guy I met at conference. He was 32. Documentary filmmaker. Thoughtful. Creative. Respectful. Seemed aligned with my values. Early dates were promising. He asked before first kiss. Checked in during intimacy. Respected boundaries immediately. Exactly the evolved man I wanted. After a month of dating, decided to make things official. Had conversation about expectations. Explained my consent framework thoroughly. I need verbal consent for all physical contact. Nothing assumed. Everything asked every time. Not just first time. He listened carefully, even after we're established. Especially then. Can't assume consent just because we're in relationship. He seemed hesitant. That seems very formal. But if it's important to you? Okay. His agreement felt like progress. He was willing to respect my boundaries. Even if different from his preference, first few weeks were adjustment. He'd reach for my hand, then stop and ask, "May I hold your hand?" Yes. Of course. He'd lean in for kiss. Then pause. Can I kiss you? Yes. Before putting arm around me, is it okay if I put my arm around you? These felt right. Clear communication. Explicit consent. No assumptions. But noticed him hesitating more. That pause before asking got longer each time. Like he was calculating whether it was worth asking. 2 months in. Started implementing more detailed framework. I need you to specify what you're asking for. Touch you is too vague. Be specific about location and type of touch. He looked confused. Specific how? Explain my protocol. Instead of can I touch you, say can I put my hand on your shoulder? Or can I hold your waist? Specific consent for specific acts. He was quiet for a moment. That's very detailed. But okay, I'll try. Next date was awkward. We were on couch, watching movie. He turned to me. Can I put my arm around your shoulders? Yes. Few minutes later, can I hold your hand? Yes. Few minutes after that, can I kiss your cheek? Yes. Each question broke the moment. But that was the point. Consent over comfort. Safety over spontaneity. 3 months in. Intimacy required even more protocol. Before bed would need to discuss everything we might do. Get consent for each act. Each touch. Each position. Nothing assumed. Everything negotiated. He'd go through checklist. Can I kiss you? Yes. Can I touch your back? Yes. Can I remove your shirt? Yes. Can I touch here? The list went on. Sometimes 10 to 15 questions before anything happened. Noticed he seemed less enthusiastic. More mechanical. Going through motions. Like filling out form rather than being intimate. Mention this to him. You seem distant during intimacy. He chose words carefully. It's hard to stay in the moment when I'm constantly asking permission. Feels more like negotiation than connection. This seemed like resistance. Explained importance of protocol. Staying in the moment isn't more important than consent. This is how we ensure everything is wanted. He nodded. You're right. I'll adjust, but things got worse. Not better. He initiated less. Seemed anxious about getting it wrong. Would forget exact phrasing I wanted. I'd correct him. You didn't specify location. You need to be more precise. He'd try again with exact language. But looked exhausted. 4 months in, added another layer. I need to be able to revoke consent at any point without explanation. He agreed immediately. Of course. That's always true. No. I mean, I need you to check in regularly. During any physical contact, to confirm ongoing consent. He looked tired. How often? Every few minutes? Just a quick, "Is this still okay?" He ran hand through his hair. Every few minutes. That's a lot of interruption. Consent is more important than flow. He agreed reluctantly. Next intimate encounter, he asked before each touch, then checked in constantly. "Is this still okay?" "Still good." "Are you sure?" Every 2 or 3 minutes. It was reassuring knowing he was checking, but also noticed he seemed completely detached, like robot following program, not person experiencing intimacy. Afterward, lay there in silence. He seemed sad, asked what was wrong. "I don't know how to do this. How to be present and follow all the protocols. It feels like I'm doing procedure, not making love." That language bothered me. It's ensuring consent that's more important than your feelings. He looked at me. "I know I'm trying, but I'm losing connection to you, to the moment, to everything." This felt like his problem to solve, not mine. 5 months in, he stopped initiating entirely, would only engage physically if I explicitly invited it, then would go through all the protocols, but without any enthusiasm. Mentioned this to friend. She was consent educator too. Sounds like he's not respecting process. If he can't handle basic consent, he might not be right for you. This confirmed my concerns. Had serious talk with him. "You seem resistant to consent culture?" "That's concerning." He was quiet for a long time. "I'm not resistant to consent. I believe in consent completely. I'm just struggling with this level of protocol." "What level?" "The constant verbal checking, the inability to read your responses, the feeling that any touch could be wrong even when you seem into it. You still have to ask. That's the point. Can't assume based on seeming. Need explicit verbal consent." He nodded slowly. "I know that's your framework. I'm just not sure I can live in it." This sounded like ultimatum. "Are you saying you won't respect my needs?" He shook his head. "I'm saying I'm exhausted. Walking on eggshells constantly. Afraid to touch my own girlfriend without going through checklist. That's not walking on eggshells. That's respecting consent." He stood up. "I need some space to think about this." He left. Texted later. He was staying at friend's place. Made post about situation. Partner struggling with consent protocols. Says he feels like he's walking on eggshells. Is this red flag? Got supportive responses? Yes. Huge red flag. He's telling you he wants to violate boundaries. Men who can't handle consent are dangerous. Leave before he shows his true colors. These validated my concerns. He was revealing himself as someone who resented consent, who wanted things easier at expense of my safety. Called him next day. Asked when he was coming back. "I don't think I am." "Wait. What?" "I've been thinking a lot about our relationship, about your protocols, about how I feel, and I can't do this anymore." "Can't do what?" "Live in framework, where I have to ask permission for every touch, every moment, where I can never relax, never be spontaneous, never trust my read of situation. Those aren't bugs. Those are features. That's the point of consent culture." He sighed heavily. "I know that's what you believe, but I can't live that way. I feel like robot following programming, not human being in relationship." This was absurd. "So, you're leaving because you have to respect my consent." There was long pause. "No. I'm leaving because your version of consent has made intimacy impossible, has made casual affection impossible, has made me afraid to be close to you. That's ridiculous. You're just not willing to do the work." Another long pause. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I'm not willing to do this specific work because I don't think it's healthy for either of us." "Not healthy. We haven't had spontaneous moment in 5 months. Haven't touched without negotiation. Haven't been close without protocol. I miss connection. Miss intimacy that flows. Miss feeling wanted. Instead of repeatedly asking if I'm tolerated, you are wanted, just within appropriate framework. He laughed bitterly. That's the problem. I don't want to be wanted within a framework. I want to be wanted spontaneously. Naturally. I want girlfriend who reaches for me. Not girlfriend who requires formal request before I reach for her. This sounded like rejection of everything I believed in. So consent isn't important to you. His voice got firm. Consent is incredibly important. But there are different ways to practice consent. Your way isn't the only way. And it's not working for me. What other way is there? Enthusiastic participation. Reading body language. Checking in naturally. Building trust over time so you can tell what's wanted without asking every time. That's not real consent. That's assumed consent, which is dangerous. Is it? Though he asked, in established relationship with clear communication and trust, is it really dangerous for me to kiss you when you're clearly receptive without saying, "May I kiss you first?" Yes. It is. Because you might be wrong about me being receptive. Then you'd tell me, after you already violated my boundary, it wouldn't be violation. If you were actually receptive, and if you weren't, you'd say so, and I'd stop immediately. That's also consent. No, it's not. Real consent is verbal and prior. He went quiet again. I can't agree with that. In context of relationship with established intimacy, I think consent can be nonverbal and ongoing through participation and response. This was fundamental disagreement. So, you're saying you won't follow my protocols? Hisail, I'm saying I can't. I've tried for 5 months. I'm not happy. You're not happy. This isn't working. I'm happy with protocols. Just not with your resistance. Exactly. He said, you're happy with protocols, but not with me. I'm just mechanism for following your rules. That's not relationship. That's compliance exercise. That's not fair. Maybe not. But it's how I feel. And I can't do it anymore. So, you're leaving? Yes. I need relationship where I can be spontaneous, where I can show affection without formal request process, where my partner trusts me enough to not need constant verbal verification. My protocols aren't about trust. They're about safety. I know. But I need both. Trust and safety. Your system has safety, but no trust. And that's not enough for me. Tried to argue more, but he was done. I'm going to come get my things tomorrow while you're at work. I think clean break is best. Hung up, sat there stunned. He was really leaving over consent protocols, over basic safety measures, posted about breakup. Partner left because he didn't want to ask permission before touching me. Showed his true colors. Good riddance. Got expected support? You dodged bullet. He revealed himself. Imagine if you'd stayed. Eventually, he'd have assaulted you. These felt validating. But something nagged at me, called consent educator colleague. Explain situation. Expected validation. She was surprisingly measured. How did he handle the protocols? He followed them perfectly, every time. Did he ever violate your consent? No. Never. Did he pressure you to change them? No. He tried to adapt, so he respected your consent completely for 5 months until he couldn't anymore and he left. Put that way sounded different. What are you saying? She chose words carefully. I'm saying maybe he wasn't wrong to leave. If system wasn't working for him, but the system is important for you. Yes. But maybe not for everyone. In every relationship, at every stage. This felt like betrayal. You're a consent educator. You teach these protocols. Shisaihe. I teach them for professional settings. For new encounters. For situations with power dynamics. But in established relationships, I think there's more flexibility. What do you mean? Couples need to find what works for them. Your protocols work for you. But they didn't work for him. That doesn't make him predator. Just incompatible. This was new perspective. Uncomfortable one. Mentioned it to therapist. Expected her to side with me. She asked probing questions. Did you ever ask what he needed? He needed to respect my protocols. No. What he needed from relationship? From intimacy. From you. Thought about it. Couldn't remember asking. Why does that matter? She leaned forward. Because relationships are mutual. Your needs matter. But so do his. You prioritized your needs completely. Never considered his. But my needs were about safety. Were they though, she asked? Or were they about control? That felt like accusation. About control? I was ensuring consent. She nodded. By controlling every interaction. Every touch. Every moment. Down to exact words and timing. That is control. Even if well-intentioned, never thought of it that way. He tried for 5 months to meet your needs. Did you ever try to meet his need to touch me without asking? That's not legitimate need. His need for spontaneity, for trust-based intimacy, for connection that flows naturally, those are legitimate needs. You dismiss them completely because consent is more important. Is it though? She asked. More important than trust. More important than connection. More important than his well-being. Sat with that uncomfortable question. She continued, consent is crucial. But so is trust in established relationship between people who know each other. Trust is also crucial. You didn't trust him at all. I trusted him to follow protocols. That's not trust. That's compliance. Real trust is believing someone will respect your boundaries without constant surveillance. But what if he didn't? In 5 months? Did he ever not? No. So, he earned your trust. But you never gave it. This was shifting my understanding of what happened. Started reviewing our relationship through different lens. Every time he'd asked permission, he looked less happy, more mechanical, more distant. I thought that was fine. Protocols mattered more than comfort, but he'd been dying inside, slowly becoming robot to meet my requirements until he couldn't anymore. Looked at messages he'd sent during relationship. Early on, I love being with you. Month 2, I care about you. Month 3, this is hard, but I'm trying. Month 4, I don't know if I can do this. Month 5, I feel like I'm failing. Could see his decline. In his own words, as my protocols increased, his happiness decreased until he left. Not because he didn't respect consent, but because he couldn't live in my specific framework. Posted reflection. Maybe I was too rigid in my consent protocols with ex-partner. Response was immediate and harsh. You're backtracking on consent. This is dangerous. You're validating men who don't want to ask. Fellow consent educators condemned me. She's undermining our work, making consent seem optional. This helps predators. Tried to clarify, not saying consent is optional. Saying my specific protocols might have been too rigid for established relationship. No one wanted to hear it. Called X. He answered surprised. Hey. What's up? Wanted to apologize for not considering your needs. For being so rigid. For not trying to find middle ground. He was quiet. I appreciate that. But I don't think we were compatible. You need your protocols. I need spontaneity. Neither is wrong. Just incompatible. Asked if he thought I was wrong about everything. He thought carefully. Not wrong. But maybe extreme. Consent matters absolutely. But there are ways to practice it that don't require verbal negotiation of every touch. In trusting relationship, asked what he meant. Like you could have said, I trust you to read my cues and I'll speak up if something's not okay. That's also consent, active participation, clear communication, but without constant asking. That felt scary. What if he read wrong? Then you'd say so and I'd stop. That's what trust means. Trusting someone to respond when you communicate. Not just to ask permission before every move. Asked how he was doing. Good? Actually, dating someone new? It's easier. How she trusts me. We communicate clearly, but she doesn't need permission for every touch. When I lean in to kiss her, she either kisses back or turns away. Both are clear communication. Both are consent. Just different form. This hurt to hear, but made sense. I'm glad you found that. He was kind. I hope you find what works for you. 2. Maybe someone who needs same level of protocol. You're not wrong. We just didn't match. We ended call amicably, but I felt shaken. Everything I believed was being challenged. Started researching different consent models. Found most experts agreed verbal consent crucial for new encounters, for unclear situations, for anything boundary pushing. But in established relationships, consent could also be nonverbal and ongoing through participation, through trust, through clear communication patterns. Found article by sex therapist. Over-protocolization of intimacy can damage relationships by removing trust and spontaneity, creating anxiety instead of safety. Article described couples who'd implemented rigid protocols like mine, all struggled with connection, with spontaneity, with trust. Many broke up, not because of abuse, but because protocols killed intimacy. This was uncomfortable reading, but necessary. Attended conference on consent education, expected everyone to share my view. Found diversity of approaches. Some educators taught strict protocols like mine. Others taught trust-based models for established relationships. One workshop particularly relevant, consent beyond verbal trust in long-term relationships. Presenter argued that constant verbal checking could actually undermine consent by creating anxiety and removing agency. If you always ask permission, you remove partners' ability to freely initiate and respond. They become passive, just approving or denying rather than actively participating. This resonated, made myself passive, just waiting to approve or deny his requests, never initiating, never reaching out, never showing want, just controlling access to myself. After workshop, talk to presenter, explain my situation. She was sympathetic. You're not alone. Many people over-apply protocols designed for one contexts to all contexts, including where they don't fit. She continued, in new encounter, clear verbal consent is essential. In committed relationship with established trust, consent can look different, more embodied, more fluid, more mutual. Asked if that was safe, with right person. Yes. With someone who's proven they respect your no, they check in naturally. They respond to your cues. Trust-based consent is safe. Maybe even safer because it's relationship-specific. Not protocol following. This was paradigm shift. Started examining my work, teaching consent protocols for theater, for film. Those contexts needed clear protocols, power dynamics at play, professional boundaries, new working relationships, but I'd extended those to personal relationship where context was different. Power was equal. Trust was established. History existed. Maybe protocols needed adjustment based on context. Made post about learning. I've been thinking about consent models and how different contexts might need different approaches. Rigid protocols for new professional situations. Trust-based consent for established relationships. Response was mixed. Lost more followers who saw this as betrayal, but gained thoughtful ones interested in nuance. Got message from X. Saw your post. That's growth. I'm proud of you. That meant something. Started teaching differently. Still emphasizing consent importance. But acknowledging context matters in professional settings. Verbal. Specific. Documented. In new encounters. Clear, verbal, ongoing, in established relationships. Negotiated between partners based on their trust and communication. Some students pushed back. Isn't that leaving room for abuse? Addressed it directly. Abuse happens regardless of protocol. Abusers will violate consent no matter what system exists. We're talking about healthy relationships between trustworthy people. Finding what works for them. Student asked important question. How do you know if someone's trustworthy enough for trust-based consent? Good question. Have they respected your no? Have they checked in naturally? Do they respond to your cues? Do they prioritize your comfort? Have they proven over time they care about your consent? If yes to all these, trust-based consent might work. If no to any, stick with explicit protocols. This felt like better framework, context-dependent, relationship-specific. Not one size fits all. Started dating again year after breakup. Met someone new. Therapist. Interestingly, specialized in relationships. Early dates used clear protocols. Can I kiss you? Can I hold your hand? He followed perfectly. After a month, we discussed consent approach for our relationship. He had thoughtful perspective. I think we should check in regularly about what's working. But I'd like to not ask before every touch. If that's okay with you. This was test of my growth. Took deep breath. What would that look like? He explained, I'd read your body language, your responses, your participation. If you seem receptive, I proceed. If you pull back or seem uncertain, I'd stop and check in. And you should do same with me. We both initiate. We both respond. We both trust each other to communicate clearly. This was scary, but also felt right for this relationship at this stage. Agreed to try with regular check-ins about how it was working. First time he kissed me without asking first. Felt strange, but also natural. He'd leaned in slowly, giving me time to move. I'd stayed clearly receptive. Kiss happened. No verbal negotiation, but clear consent through participation. Afterward, he asked, was that okay that I didn't ask first? It was okay. Actually, more than okay. Felt more connected, more mutual, more like both of us wanted it. Instead of me granting permission, relationship developed with this balance. Sometimes we asked for new things or when uncertain. But established affection flowed naturally, with both of us initiating and responding. Trusting each other to communicate, this felt healthier than previous relationship where I'd controlled everything and killed intimacy in process. 6 months into new relationship, had conversation with partner about my previous relationship, how rigid I'd been. He listened thoughtfully. I understand why. Your work isn't consent. You were trying to be consistent, but I hurt someone by being too rigid. You were both learning. He learned his limits. You learned yours. That's okay. He continued. Consent isn't one thing. It's different in different contexts. What works here might not work elsewhere. That's okay. 2. This was wisdom I'd been missing. Year into new relationship. Reflected on journey from rigid protocols to trust-based consent. Both had validity in right context. My ex wasn't wrong to leave previous relationship. I wasn't evil for having those boundaries. We were just incompatible. On fundamental level. He needed spontaneity and trust. I needed protocol and control. Those couldn't coexist. At least not then. Now I was different. Could do both. Protocols when needed. Trust when earned. Context-dependent approach, instead of rigid system, made final post about journey. 2 years after he asked permission to leave. Detailed story. My rigid consent protocols. His growing exhaustion. Him leaving. My initial defensiveness. My eventual growth. My new understanding. My current relationship using trust-based consent. Post got surprising response, both from my ex and from his current partner. Ex, thank you for sharing this. Shows real growth. I'm happy you found what works. His partner, he told me about you, about how hard that relationship was. Thank you for understanding now why he had to leave. It meant a lot to him. These messages brought closure. He was happy. I was growing. Both had learned from relationship that didn't work. That's what matters. Not who was right or wrong, but that both found what they needed. Me. Protocols. When starting. Trust when established. Him. Spontaneity and trust from the beginning. Both valid, just incompatible. That's the lesson from demanding. He asked permission before every touch, and him asking permission to leave instead. He wasn't wrong to leave. I wasn't evil for my boundaries. We just needed different things from intimacy and trust. My protocols served me in certain contexts, but killed intimacy in that relationship. His need for spontaneity was legitimate, not resistance to consent, just different consent model. Both can coexist in different relationships, with different people, at different stages. That's what I learned by losing someone good, because I was too rigid to see his needs mattered too. Not just mine. Consent is essential, but so is trust. So is spontaneity. So is mutual initiation. So is feeling desired. Not just permitted. Balance is key. Context is essential. Rigidity kills intimacy. Even well-intentioned rigidity. That's the truth. I learned the hard way. When good man asked permission to leave instead of permission to touch, because my need for control disguised as consent made intimacy impossible for someone who needed trust and spontaneity to feel connected, he was right to go. I was right to learn. Both are okay. That's growth. Painful, but necessary. From rigid protocols to contextual consent, from control to trust, from permission-based to participation-based intimacy that works better for everyone involved when done right. With right person, at right time. That's real consent. Not just protocol, but trust and communication and mutual desire and spontaneous connection, all of it together. Creating intimacy that feels safe and alive at the same time. Now teach workshops differently. Share both stories. The rigid protocols that fail, the trust-based approach that worked. Students appreciate honesty. So consent isn't just one way. No, it's not. It's contextual, relational. It evolves with trust. One student raised hand. What if you start trust-based, but realize you need more protocol? That's valid. 2, relationships change. Needs change. Communication adjusts. You can always renegotiate. Add more structure if needed. Or loosen it if both want. The key is ongoing dialogue. Another student asked, "Did you ever talk to your ex about finding middle ground?" This hit hard. No, I never did. Never asked what compromise could look like. Just insisted on my way or nothing. That's my biggest regret. Not that I had boundaries, but that I saw them as non-negotiable when relationships require some negotiation. Some meeting in middle. Student nodded thoughtfully. So it's not just about consent. It's about partnership. Exactly. Consent within partnership. Not consent as control mechanism. That distinction matters. Current partner and I had dinner with ex and his partner 1.5 years after breakup. Was nervous. But it went well. His partner was lovely. Varm. Spontaneous. Reached for him naturally. He responded naturally. Could see their ease. Their flow. What he'd needed and couldn't find with me. During dinner, we laughed about the early dates. Remember when you'd ask before every single thing? He cringed. I was so rigid. He smiled kindly. You were consistent with your beliefs. I respect that. We just weren't compatible. His partner jumped in. He told me you taught him to be more thoughtful about consent. Even though it didn't work out. He's better at communication now. This surprised me. Really? X nodded. You made me think about consent more carefully. I just needed different application. But the awareness you gave me, that statement felt warm. Hearing this, relationship hadn't been waste. Oh. We'd both grown, just couldn't grow together. My partner squeezed my hand under the table. Natural? Unasked. I squeezed back. Also natural. Also consent. Just different form. After dinner? Ex walked me to car while partners chatted. I want to say something. Okay? You weren't wrong about consent being important. You weren't villain. You were just learning. Like I was. That meant everything. I thought I'd hurt you by being too rigid. He shook his head. You did hurt me. But not by having boundaries. By not seeing me as person with needs, too. But I didn't communicate well either. I went along too long instead of speaking up sooner. We both made mistakes. This was healing. Not just me at fault. Not just him at fault. Both trying. Both failing. Both learning. Drove home that night feeling lighter than I had in years. Released guilt I'd carried about being too much. About hurting him. Yes. I was rigid. Yes. It didn't work. But I was also learning. Growing. Evolving. That's what matters. Started writing book about consent in relationships. Different from my previous work, which focused on professional settings. This one about personal context, about finding balance between safety and spontaneity, between protocol and trust, between control and connection. Working title, Consent is Not Control. Finding intimacy beyond protocol. Publisher worried, won't this undermine consent culture? No, it strengthens it by acknowledging nuance, by respecting context, by trusting people. Book took year to write, interviewed couples with different consent approaches. Some used very explicit verbal communication, others relied more on established trust and nonverbal cues. Successful couples had one thing in common, not specific protocol, communication, mutual respect, willingness to adapt, ability to discuss needs openly. That was real lesson. Not that one consent model was correct, that healthy relationships require finding model that works for both people. Book released. Expected backlash. Got some activists accused me of weakening consent standards. Others appreciated nuance. One review stood out. Finally, someone acknowledges that healthy relationships aren't legal contracts. They're partnerships built on trust and communication. That felt accurate. Years later, became known for more balanced approach. Still taught theater protocols exactly same. Still believed in explicit consent, where appropriate, but stopped treating one model as universal solution. Workshop participant once asked, what's biggest mistake people make with consent? Thought about it, assuming there's only one right way to do it. Can explain, people take framework that works in one context and apply it everywhere. Professional settings aren't same as romantic relationships. First date isn't same as 5-year marriage. Someone with trauma history isn't same as someone without it. Context matters. Individual needs matter. Relationships matter. Another participant asked, what's biggest mistake you made? Easy answer. I cared so much about protecting myself that I stopped participating in relationship. What do you mean? I made him responsible for everything. Reading rules. Following protocols. Managing every interaction. I stopped sharing responsibility for creating intimacy, stopped showing desire, stopped taking emotional risks, just sat behind system and evaluated whether he followed it correctly. Room got quiet. Continued, consent should create safety that allows connection. My version created safety by eliminating connection. That's not balance. That's fear-running relationship. After workshop, young woman approached. Your story scares me. Why? Because I can see myself doing what you did. I've been hurt before. Sometimes I want rules for everything, because rules feel safe. Understood that feeling deeply. Rules can be helpful. Just remember, people aren't systems. Relationships aren't compliance exercises. You can't protocol your way into feeling secure. Real security comes from trust. And trust always involves some vulnerability. She nodded slowly. Needed to hear that. Few years after book release, received unexpected email from X. Subject line, saw your book. Heart raced, Opening it. Message was simple. Read it this weekend. You told story honestly. Thank you. Proud of who you've become. Sat staring at screen. Not sad. Not longing. Just grateful. Replied, thank you for being patient long enough for me to learn. His response came next day. We both learned. That's enough. And it was, didn't need reunion. Didn't need second chance. Didn't need dramatic ending. Just understanding. Just recognition that two people had collided with different needs. Hurt each other unintentionally. Then grown because of it. That's rare. That's valuable. Current relationship eventually became marriage. Funny thing, wedding vows included conversation about consent, not because required it, because wanted to. Partner smiled during ceremony. Promised to keep talking to me. Always. Promise to tell me what you need. Always. Promise to trust me when I've earned it. Always. Simple. No contracts. No checklists. No scripts. Just mutual commitment to communicate honestly. Years into marriage. Still checked in about important things. Still asked questions when uncertain. Still respected boundaries. But affection flowed naturally. Hands found each other. Kisses happened. Comfort happened. Connection happened. Not because consent disappeared, because consent had become integrated into relationship instead of sitting above it. One evening after teaching class, came home emotionally exhausted. Partner looked up from couch. Long day. Very. Need hug or need space? Question made me smile. Need. Hug. He opened arms. No formal protocol. No detailed negotiation. Just invitation. Choice. Response. Connection. That single moment contained everything I'd spent years trying to understand. Consent. Trust. Communication. Mutual desire. All working together. Not competing. Not replacing each other. Supporting each other. Sometimes think about younger version of myself. Sitting alone after breakup. Convinced good man had left because he hated consent. Convinced she was completely right and he was completely wrong. Wish I could tell her something. What? You don't have to choose between safety and connection. You don't have to choose between consent and trust. Healthy relationships need both. The goal isn't eliminating all risk. The goal is building relationships strong enough to handle vulnerability together. Would she listen? Probably not. Growth rarely happens before you're ready. Sometimes you need consequences first. Need heartbreak first. Need experience first. That's okay. Learning often hurts. But looking back now, don't regret relationship. Regret mistakes. Regret rigidity. Regret not listening sooner. But not relationship itself, because it taught lesson couldn't have learned any other way. That consent matters. Trust matters. Communication matters. Desire matters. And none of those things should exist at expense of all the others. Balance, that's what was missing. Not consent. Not love. Balance. Final workshop of every year. Always end with same message now. Students expect complicated framework. Instead, give them something simple. Consent isn't checklist. Trust isn't mind reading. Communication isn't interrogation. Healthy intimacy lives somewhere between all three. Student once wrote that down. Asked, that's the whole lesson. Smiled. Pretty much. Everything else is details. Class laughed, but meant it. Spent years learning that simple truth. Years teaching it. Years living it. And every good relationship I've seen since then confirms same thing. People thrive when they feel safe. People thrive when they feel trusted. People thrive when they feel wanted. Leave any one of those out and something important breaks. Include all three and intimacy has chance to flourish. That's where story ends. Not with breakup. Not with being right. Not with being wrong. With understanding. With growth. With recognizing that good intentions aren't always enough. That principles need context. That boundaries need communication. That trust needs earning. And that love, at its healthiest, is neither complete freedom nor complete control. It's two people choosing each other while staying open, honest, respectful, and responsive to each other's needs. That's what took me years to learn. That's what he understood before I did. And that's why When he asked permission to leave, it ultimately became greatest lesson he ever gave me.